Rafah's worst fears are coming true. Thousands of Palestinians living here have been ordered to evacuate to humanitarian zones with no breakthrough in the truce talks with the Hamas on the horizon. Israel continues to bombard the besieged enclave. After Israel's military called for Palestinians to evacuate eastern Rafah ahead of an offensive, U.S. President Joe Biden held a telephonic conversation with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, which lasted for half an hour. Biden reiterated United States' clear stance against Rafah operation, while Netanyahu agreed to allow humanitarian aid through Kerem Shalom crossing. Hours after warning Palestinians to evacuate parts of the southern Gaza city, Israel's military carried out airstrikes in Rafah. Gazan officials say Israeli jets struck two areas that the Israeli military had ordered to be evacuated ahead of a possible ground invasion of the Palestinian city. At least 22 people, including children and 2 infants, were reportedly killed in the latest Israeli airstrike. A desperate situation is unfolding right now in the eastern parts. Arabic text messages, phone calls and flyers urged Gazans to move to what the Israeli military called an expanded humanitarian zone around 20 kilometers away. People were seen parking their belongings and loading them onto vehicles and donkey carts. As the world takes note of the unfolding scenes in the southernmost part of Gaza, UNICEF has warned that some 600,000 children packed into Gaza's Rafah city face further catastrophe, urging against their forced relocation by Israel. Here are a few voices from Gaza.
بنفك الخيمة للمرة الرابعة واحنا بننزح من الشمال لخان يونس لغاية في رفح بننزح ومعسكر جباليا نزحنا وبنستمعنا لكلام الجيش إنه نطلع للمناطق الآمنة في مواصل خان يونس.
We fled death and destruction, and we came to Rafah only to find destruction here. Do they want to kill us here? We came seeking safety in Rafah. Where do they want to send us? Where are we to go? The situation is so difficult, we are unable to describe the destruction that we are living in here. Someone feel for us and the tragedy we are living through.
Latest visuals show Israeli soldiers servicing tanks on the border with the Gaza Strip as Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's government remains firm in its goal to eliminate Hamas. The Palestinian presidency has called on Washington to prevent a massacre from taking place. EU Foreign Affairs Chief Joseph Borrell said the EU, with the international community, can and must act to prevent such scenarios. Slamming Israel, France said the forced displacement of a civilian population constitutes a war crime. Germany has called on all the parties to continue with the negotiations towards a truce in Gaza. Meanwhile, CIA Director William Burns is in Jerusalem to meet Netanyahu and the war cabinet. Ian Bremmer is the president and founder of Eurasia Group and G0 Media. He is joining us from New York. Mr. Bremmer, negotiations haven't had any headway for months. Is there any other country apart from Qatar, Saudi Arabia and Egypt who can take the talks forward and bring in some change?
I mean, the one country that could play more of a role that hasn't so far is Iran. And I say that because Iran is, of course, the primary ideological, military, and intelligence supporter for the so-called axis of resistance, which includes its proxies in Syria and Iraq, perhaps now Bahrain, the Houthis in Yemen, Hezbollah in Lebanon, and also Hamas in Gaza. Now, the Iranians do not have diplomatic relations with the United States. They're certainly not trusted in any way by the Israelis. Their relations, even with the Gulf states, have become more strained over the course of this war, though we had normalization facilitated by China a year ago. If there's a surprise actor that could make a positive difference here, it would be Iran. But so far, there are no indications that has occurred.
Mr. Bremmer, who, in your opinion, is the deal broker in this war? Is it the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu or Hamas?
Oh, I think that, you know, we can be generous and we can give credit to both sides for screwing this up. I don't think we need to focus on one. I mean, you know, we're 7 months into this war and Hamas is still holding on to a bunch of civilian hostages, some of whom have been tortured, some of whom have been raped. This is, there are a lot of countries in the world that believe you should never negotiate with terrorists in any way. So the very fact that there are negotiations with this organization, is already, in a sense, a softening of position, given what happened on October 7th. Having said that, Benjamin Netanyahu has the smallest, the narrowest of majorities in the Knesset to keep his government afloat.
Does the U.S. have the capability to stop this escalation? And if yes, how, Mr. Bremer?
Yeah, they were trying to. You'll remember when the 3 Americans, servicemen and women, were killed in Jordan, that the U.S. waited for a week before they responded militarily, and they got the information to Iran so Iran could pull their own people out. And the U.S. hits were on the proxies themselves, including degrading about 30% of known Houthi military capabilities. When the Iranians were responding to Israel's strike on Damascus, they waited a week, and they told the Turks, they told the Iraqis to get that information to the U.S. It's going to be military targeting. It wasn't going to be the Americans. So it appears that both the United States and Iran, not to mention, of course, the Gulf states, China, the Europeans, there are a lot of countries here that strongly want to ensure that this conflict does not escalate out of control across the region. Unfortunately, the 2 principal antagonists, Hamas and the Israelis, are not so interested. They think that there's still a lot of unfinished business here, and that makes it a lot harder to contain. So, your answer is it's complicated.
Mr. Ian Bremer, thank you very much for talking to WION World is One today. For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.